You ever see a headline about a war happening thousands of miles away? And then a few weeks later, you notice your grocery bill is higher? Or that it costs more to fill up your car? It feels unrelated, right? Well, it's not. Today, we're going to connect those dots, and you'll see just how a distant conflict can hit you right in the wallet.
Okay, so it often kicks off with something like this, a headline that just screams economic trouble. The ruby takes a nosedive, and you think, wow, what happened here? But the crazy thing is, the real trigger, the event that started this whole mess, wasn't something local. It was a crisis that flared up on the other side of the globe.
So, how does that even work? How can a conflict over there make the money in your wallet worth less over here? That's the big question, and we're about to break it all down. All right, let's start with how these things first show up on our radar, how a crisis hits home. So you get this perfect storm of events. Global tensions spike, and what happens? Investors get spooked. They pull their money out of the country, stock markets start to slide. But the real kicker for us, for our day-to-day lives, is crude oil. That's the big one. When tensions rise, oil supplies get shaky, and the price just shoots up. And right there, that spike in oil prices, that's the absolute key to this whole puzzle. Because for a country like India, this isn't just a minor problem. It's a huge, huge vulnerability. Let me show you what I mean. Yeah, 80%. That one number tells you almost everything you need to know. India has to import more than 80% of its crude oil. Just let that sink in. For every 5 barrels of oil the country uses, 4 of them come from somewhere else. So you can think of that dependency like a direct wire. When a war or a crisis shocks the global oil market, that shock travels right down the wire and hits the Indian economy. Instantly. And hard. It's a core weakness, really. Okay, so we've established the vulnerability. High oil prices are bad news. But how, exactly, does that turn into the inflation that makes everything else more expensive? Let's look at the engine behind it. It all comes down to something called cost-push inflation. And honestly, it's a pretty straightforward idea. Think about it. Oil is used in, well, everything. So when it costs more for businesses to make stuff or to ship it, they're not just going to eat that cost. Nope, they push it onto you, the consumer, by jacking up their prices. And if you're a visual person, this graph explains it perfectly. So that line AS, that's the supply of everything we buy. When oil gets more expensive, it suddenly costs more to produce all that stuff. So effectively, there's less of it to go around at the old price. The whole supply curve shifts inwards, to the left. And look where the new meeting point is. Yep, higher prices for the same amount of goods. And listen, this is so much bigger than just the price of petrol at the pump. It's a ripple effect that touches, well, everything. The truck that delivers your groceries, it runs on diesel. The factory making your clothes, it needs power. Even the food you eat, fertilizers, farming equipment, they all rely on oil. So when oil prices go up, the cost of pretty much every single thing you buy goes up with it. Now, just to be clear, this is different from the other kind of inflation you might hear about, which is demand pull. That's when there's too much money chasing too few goods, you know? Everyone wants to buy stuff. This is the opposite. It's a supply-side shock. It's not that we all suddenly want more things, it's that the things we've always wanted suddenly cost more to make and get to us. And look, this isn't just some textbook theory. This is a pattern that has played out again and again throughout history. The echoes are really clear. Okay, let's rewind to the Gulf War back in 1990. Iraq invades Kuwait. The global oil supply gets squeezed hard. And boom, the price of a barrel of oil more than doubles. What was the knock-on effect in India? It was huge. By the next year, inflation was soaring at 13%. Now let's fast forward to 2022. A completely different conflict, but it's like we're watching the same movie. Russia invades Ukraine, a massive energy producer. Sanctions, disruptions, and guess what? Oil prices pretty much double again. And the result for India? You guessed it, inflation shot up to almost 8%, way higher than anyone was comfortable with. So we've got the theory, we've got the historical case studies, but what does the cold, hard data tell us? Let's actually connect the dots with numbers. Check out this chart. It plots 15 years of data. Along the bottom, you have the price of oil. Up the side, you have the rate of inflation. And you don't need to be a statistician to see the pattern here. As the dots go to the right, as oil gets more expensive, they also tend to go up, meaning inflation gets higher. It's a pretty clear upward trend. In fact, researchers crunched the numbers and came up with a specific value for this relationship, 0.53. So, what on earth does that mean? Well, in the world of statistics, that's what you call a high positive correlation. The simple takeaway for us is that this isn't random. It's not a fluke. It's solid proof that when oil prices go up, inflation in India almost always follows suit. So, just how big is this effect? I mean, really, it's pretty massive. The research shows that those swings in oil prices can explain almost a third, about 28% of the changes we see in India's inflation. Now, of course, other things matter too, right? Government policy, how much people are buying. But what this tells us is that oil, all by itself, is a gigantic driver of the prices we pay every day. Okay, we've covered a lot. The theory, the history, the data. So let's put it all together. What does this actually mean for you? It really is like a line of dominoes. The first one to fall is some geopolitical event. That knocks over the next one. Crude oil prices spike. That knocks over the next one. Transportation and production costs go up. And that leads to the next one, inflation. And the final domino to fall? That's your purchasing power. The money in your pocket just doesn't go as far as it used to. And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? This whole complicated global chain reaction ends right in your neighborhood, at your grocery store, at the petrol station, on your electricity bill. It's the direct, unbroken line between a headline about a war and the price you pay for everything. So all of this leaves us with a really important question to chew on. We've seen just how powerful this connection is, how a single commodity can act like a wire, carrying a crisis from one part of the world directly into our homes. In a world that's getting more and more interconnected and honestly more volatile, how can an economy and how can you become more resilient for the next shock? Because, there will always be a next one.